It's crazy. Hello.
Hello, bonjour.
Bonjour, yo. How are you?
Hey, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm very fine. So
Is it raining there?
yeah, we are live, and let's go for Trivia Tuesday today.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hello, everybody's on top. Jonathan, hi. Few people coming, so thank you for coming with us tonight.
Wait, Jonathan's coming from France, isn't he?
Jonathan come from France. Yes.
Oh, it's crazy these guys stay up so late to talk to us.
Yeah. A lot of people coming from France. I think I would like more American guys, but it's okay. We can speak French. So bonjour à tout le monde. Oui. Nous allons parler des phosphates aujourd'hui. Yeah, maybe you need to work a little bit on France and make their lives on France now. So
I'll do sign language.
You do sign language?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. So what we do today? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused with my connection and all the things. So
I think we're talking about phosphate in your tank.
Yeah, phosphate in my tank. So today,
and how it gets there.
Exact. So today I try to make a video to put on the YouTube channels about the phosphate and how to avoid all the phosphate.
Nicole, hi Nicole.
Nicole, hi. How are you? You're in Canada. So good. You can move and travel around the world. That's not my case. Yeah, I tried to make a video about the food and all the phosphate issues this morning with my camera. So I running off on batteries, and I figure out I have my charger, but it was too late. And okay, I said, okay, let's do it something different. So I test my phosphate, I test my food, so I have some backup and feedback about that. Vancouver Island, that's a good place to be right now.
I wish I was there.
Yeah. I think it's a very good place to be. Not too hot like today. It's 102 here in South Carolina, Colombia. I don't know. I was in Winston.
It's about 92.
92. Oh yeah, 10-degree difference. Yeah. Today it's like crazy hot, and in my room right now with the light, the computer, the eating. Yeah, it's like I will have some wet. So anyway, so I did some kind of test, phosphate and everything. So I will try it. I don't know if I have some picture. My computer today running so badly. So I made some videos, and maybe I put on the YouTube channel next. But a lot of people complain about phosphate in a tank and how to avoid that. So first, your filtration system, your SAM system. So you need to have a good skimmer, a good pump, and a good turnovers. That the first. And when your system is perfect and everything's run well, I think you need to go like more deeply and switch by the food and where they come from. Because the problem of the phosphate in the water and the tank is come because you put phosphate in that tank. It's not coming from the system. It comes from everything you used on your system to increase your phosphate. So it can come from, let's see, it can come from the carbon, it can come from the frozen food, it can come from the pellets, it can come from the water. It was the case. I put something on the Facebook today about some picture I did with tap water, eroded water, and the water on my tank. If you go on the feed and if you go in the story and Aquarium Partner Facebook page or Instagram, you can see the difference. So I was running low in battery, but I'm running low also in eroded water, because this morning I fill up my tank and then I say, oh my God, I need some eroded water for my video. And it was, okay, my bad. So using tap water, I test tap water and I find a lot of phosphate on my tap water. So I say, oh, I cannot use this to prove my fish food is better, because if my water is full of phosphate, I will be in trouble.
Where was your tap water running? You know, do you have a number?
It was not like, it was like 0.10 ppm.
Okay.
It was not that much, but you know, when you want to prove your food or your test or everything is accurate or with low phosphate, you cannot going from something it is high like 0.10. It's like too much. Maybe if it was 0.02 or 0.5, could be okay, because our test kit, the regular test kit, go from 0 for sure to 0.02, 0.5, and then 0.5, 0.10, and more, like 1 ppm.
That's like the fourth or fifth level, right?
It was the medium, yeah, the middle of the level. So yeah.
So can I ask a question? Do you think that phosphate is cumulative?
What do you mean by that?
All right, so let's say if you start with tap water and you add a food or a carbon, or you're using something that has phosphates in it, over time you're going to add to the point where you might really tip the balance of phosphates you have.
Yeah, for sure. That's the point. And when I come here in the US, a lot of people say you cannot using the tap water because you will have phosphate and silicate. So it was the case. I say, okay, let's running for a ROD system. Then things happen, and we don't use any of this. And I bought some water from Aquarium Specialty in my city, fishy business, and so also with Will from Palmetto Reef to try different things and be working with all the shop. So every time, see if I go see someone, I fill up my jar and use the ROD water. So sometimes I am running low and sometimes I have enough. But if you use tap water with silicate and phosphate, you will have some trouble, because for sure phosphate will increase. It will not top the rounds. Only if in my system, for example, I use eroded water for the first 2 months, and then I use the tap water because it was more easy. After 2 months, my phosphate in my tank was little bit low because the system is very strong and we don't have any more fish. I have just one clownfish. I have a block, like we said last week. I have a block of marine pure. I have a big skimmer. I make 10 gallons water change every week or every 10 to 15 days. So my phosphate is very low. And I prove it today with the test. I make a test on my salt water, and my salt water was like no phosphate, 0. Maybe I can do a high resolution test kit and running low and see exactly what's going on. But it was enough. My tank is empty, so I don't care about phosphate level in my tank. But just to control and be sure my test kit works, because when you use the RD water tap water and salt water, you want to know which one is good and which one is bad. So after I make it and try it, my test was pretty low.
So what's the, you know, why are we concerned about phosphates? You know,
We,
phosphates are the building block of every living thing out there.
yeah,
Part of it.
exactly. But the phosphate can improve the color of the corals, and you can do have a, yeah, like Jonathan said, biology makes jobs, but that's exactly the things. You don't care about phosphate if your tank is really in a good shape. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If you have a very good system, a lot of soft corals, for example, lizard corals, xenia, a lot of soft corals, they need phosphate to grow.
Okay.
If you have a refugium, they need phosphate to grow. It's why a lot of people use the Triton method with the refugiums with a lot of algae or we can say chaetos,
Metamorpha, that works.
chaetomorpha, using in the SAM system or in the reactors, algae reactors. So the algae will drop the phosphate for them and grow inside the reactor, grow inside the refugium, and then you can cut and drop off, and your phosphate will be low. Yeah, you need phosphate for the growth of the coral, the algae, but you need also to take care of the system. If you run a SPS tank, like a low nutriments tank, with a beautiful SPS, acros, stylos, and seriato, the pink one, the blue one, you want the brightness colors. You know what I mean? You need a lot of pink, yellow, blue, and all these kind of things. So for the coral, the colors of the corals, you need to have very low phosphate, and for sure low nitrates too.
So the higher phosphate, we could say, prevents the corals from having pretty colors and also from growing. It prevents calcification, doesn't it?
Exactly.
When you have extra, so it prevents them from making skeletons, the SPS corals, the LPS corals.
Yeah, that's the point. That if you don't have you need a little bit of phosphate. Like you said, Saturday, Tristan from TRS come to the warehouse, and he says, since I use the SVC, the omegas, and the pro skimmer from Elos, and now I use the salt and the marine pure block, I have a very lack of nutriments. So I give him phosphates and nitrates and liquids, because you need phosphate and nitrates to grow your tank. So it was kind of, okay, because you use the very good product, because your system is very in a good shape, you need to add on phosphate and nitrate. Exactly what you're saying. You need phosphate and nitrate to grow, to put your skeletons to grow, and also to have the balance. The bacteria blocks helps too. Yeah, it's exactly what Jonathan said. Bacteria and algae work pretty well on phosphate. But if you have a very low tank and you want, for example, the TRS, the Tristan tank was more LPS tank with like Acan, Ophelia, the Gold Torch, all these Pond Torch, some kind of what's you have also the Acan, you have also the Welsophilia, you have all these kind of things.
Yeah, he had some blastos in there, I think.
The blastos too. They need a little bit of phosphate to grow. But if you want to brightness the corals and have the growth, because it's a very slow growing, so they need a little bit of phosphate to grow a little bit more, and that's the point. So we need to add on liquids on phosphate and nitrate. So we use the fertilizer we use for fresh water to add on some nitrate and phosphate, because the nitrate from the advanced line, the line we use for plants.
Sure.
It's exactly the product you need for a reef tank. It's not right on it. It's reef product, but the product will be exactly the same. We're working with.
What we really have is a balancing act.
Exactly.
You know, it depends upon what you have in your tank. And I guess you could always add some food that would have a little phosphate in it, and that would help on the tank.
Yeah.
But it just depends on, you know, what phosphate it is. So there's a couple of different phosphates, and part of what we wanted to talk about tonight was the phosphate used as a preservative.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah, a good question also from Nicole about the lower level you recommend for SPS and LPS tank, and what is the level you recommend for soft coral tank? Yeah, it's a very good question. I will say not numbers, because numbers it will be completely different, since soft and SPS. For SPS, I will do, my level will be the most close to 0. That's the most important. But you need to have a balance between phosphates and nitrates. If not, you will be some diatoms, and you can have some cyanos inside the tank. So it's a just of balance. But the more lower is it for SPS and LPS, it's better. Then I will say 0.002, 0.005. That's the most important things for SPS and LPS. Then for soft coral, it's depend of the soft coral. If you have the soft coral like mine on the picture, it's like a very bright and white Kenya tree, Alcyonium from ocean, Indian Ocean. These kind of corals live very high on the reef, so they are very low nutrients levels. So for this kind of things, you need to have a low nutrient. But for deepers, you can go for 0.2, 0.5, not that much. The problem will be the algae. I have a problem with a customer in Europe, have algae everywhere in the glasses. But the tank is perfectly. He made a ICP test, and no phosphate and no nitrate. But you have a lot of algae on the glass. And I said, it's not magical. If you have the algae on the glass, you have some kind of nutriment somewhere in the tank, just enough to feed the algae. So you need to find the way to take away the nutriment inside the tank to avoid the algae. So that's the most important. But in our case, adding phosphate inside the tank by, also, that's the kind of tie come in and say, we'll adjust the light power according to the nutrient level. So yes, for sure. But the thing is, we need to have the nutriments lower as we can, so we can put the maximum power we can. That's the kind of things very interesting. Oh, I think this is kind of an interesting thing. So
yeah, this is a little more sophisticated group than talking to basics, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's very interesting. So the thing is, you need to, everybody's have the same answer about alkalinities and low nutriments and soft coral, SPS. The most important thing is to know what you want to go. SPS, LPS, soft corals. If you want just have an anemones and a couple of clownfish, you don't care. Just make water change and use what you want, and it will be okay. But if you want to go more deeper for SPS tank or LPS tank, you need to have a very good food, because you need to feed the corals too, and every day. That's what I recommend. Feeding corals every day. Every corals in the sea are fed every 6 hours. When the sea coming back, all the nutrient come from the lowers of the reef, go up, and feed the corals by plankton and all these kind of nutrients coming from deepest sea inside the reef. So that's the most important thing. So every 6 hours, when the tide grow up, the corals has feed, and when the tide go low, the nutrients go back. So that's the most interesting. So, but need prone. So, do you have some question? I see you are more interested. Yeah.
So let's talk about Elos food.
Let's talk about Elos food. So,
I've seen. Do you have any Elos food there with you?
yeah, I have.
Because it's really interesting what it says on the Elos food.
Oh yeah, it was here. So,
Okay.
We have the SVM. Oh,
That's what I turn it so you can see the characters on the side. There you go, right there.
yeah, right there. So I can do something very interesting for you if you give me a few seconds.
Okay.
I can go like that.
There you are.
Like that, you can see the question was every time the people concerned about why your fish food is better than other. So why is better? It's better because we use a better raw materials. Okay, we use the better materials, so the bioavailability is better. Like you have the same things in VTO food. We use the low temperature on raw materials, so we don't destroy the product. We add vitamins, so that's very interesting. And beta-glucan, you know, Elos was the first company in the world to using beta-glucans. So it's why we use beta-glucans. Then the most important thing is what we used for conservatives, and what you said more. We don't use any phosphate and any polyphosphate inside the food. So we have the same for the SVC, the plankton food. So we don't use any phosphate. I have a good discussion about that with Jake Adams on the last Reefapalooza, and they say it's not possible. If you use food, you use phosphate, like you said. Yes, phosphate is on each block. If you use amino acid, you use phosphate. You use phosphate every time. But the thing is, which phosphate you use. If you use polyphosphate for the food, for the conservative, you will add phosphate inside the tank. And every day, every day, every day. So you will say, okay, I feed a little bit because I don't want to add phosphate on the tank. And you have a lack of nutrients.
That's really interesting. So the polyphosphates, which are used as a preservative, and you know, I don't think that there's a rule that says the food has to say that it has polyphosphates in it, or is preserved, or does it?
It's depend of the food. We use in our case, if you do our case, and we do the V2O pellets. In our case, they use a little bit of polyphosphate for conservative. So you will add a little bit of phosphate when you use the pellets, but it will be interest if you are very low in nutrients in your tank and you need a little bit of phosphate in your tank.
All right. So if you have an LPS or a softy tank.
Yeah, exactly. So you can use this kind of pellets for this kind of tank, or use this kind of pellets for let's see if we see something. For a tank, you don't need a lot of phosphate inside because your system don't need it. And sometimes it's better to add phosphate by dosing pump or manually and using like the Omega. The Omega will be the best product to use if you just need a little bit. Like, let's see, here you can see the Proskimmer, the Omegas, and the SVC. That the triptych you can use to feed your tank and your coral tank and have the just good level of phosphate and nutrients in your tank.
So explain what those are.
So let's explain.
Anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah. You think nobody knows about that? No, it's crazy. It would be crazy, no?
Always good to tell them again, okay?
No, I agree. I agree. So the first bottom is the SVC. It's the fresh plankton coral food we do. So we don't use any polyphosphates. It's a product we do since, as I would say, 1997. Omega will be launched at the same time. So it's about 23, 24 years now. And Omega was the first amino acid in the market to bring a little bit of phosphate and nutriments in your tank when you are too low and your coral is too clear. So that's the most important things. And the pro skimmer, it's carbohydrate. So carbons, it's a carbon source for your tank and feeding your corals. For sure, everything's inside this product with no polyphosphate on it. So some people go see, bye-bye, Philippe. Have a good night. I would like to know if Philippe have some translation on YouTube right now, because last time he asking for translation on the YouTube channel. So maybe he have some translation now. The thing is that, so you need to use the very low product to don't feed too much phosphate in your tank. Indeed, if you need it, it's another case. But in my opinion, and what we talk about with TRC and Tristan, it was like better to dose like 1 ml of phosphate or nitrate every 2-3 days, because it's just the little amount you need. So because it's better to avoid all the problems and just feed what you want. It's kind of the programs everybody use now with Triton or with Red Sea or also with Elos. We don't use. I have a long conversation with my distributors in La Réunion, the island on the Ocean Pacific. It just have product come in and he make an advertising, and he was very aggressive in his text and say, okay guys, you don't need any yellow or orange glasses for seeing your corals in your tanks, because you use the good product. So the coral will be powerful, poor light. The colors will be very strong, and you don't need to put everything on blue. You can use white light, and the coral will be colorful. You don't need fake. So use good product, and you have good result. I said maybe it's a little bit aggressive, but it's the truth anyway. So I would say, yeah, use good product and you will have good result. But the very interesting things is, yes, Daniel, hello.
Hello, Damian. It gets a little complicated when you start talking about whether you need to add a little bit of phosphate or a little bit of nitrate or
yes.
You know, it's, and I know we have some people that say, well, how do you know?
I would know what if we need phosphate or not.
The right thing.
But that's very why we do the right things. We do the right thing because you know with experience, you know what your tank looking like, and you need to test. It's not like, oh, my tank is, oh, I have a little bit of phosphate, and oh, maybe too much nitrate, and the salinity is too high, and no, it's not jack. Use a stripe and it will be okay. You need to test your tank with good test, with accuracy, and every time you have the same result. Or if you do twice your test and the same water the same day, you have the same result. Because I see some different tests, and different tests say different results on the same batch of water and the same day. So if you use the good test kit, I would say good test kit, Elos test kit, you will have the same result the same day. So you know your levels, and then you see your corals. If the corals is very brown, it's because you have too much nutriments on it. If they don't grow, it's maybe because you have too much phosphate on it. You can have a very low phosphate and high nitrate, and the problem could be cyanos or green algae or bloom, on the sand. Everybody complain about cyanos on sand, the red slime.
Right, cyanos.
Red cyanos, the slime on it, the green slime on the corals, the green slime on the light. So the problem comes from the balance. So you need to have a good balance. And how do you know it's too high or too low? You make a test. You make an ICP test, or you make some kind of things. The thing is, the ICP tests a lot of time using regular test kit to make it. Because, sorry, if I'm not wrong, I think for ICP test, you cannot make the ICP test for phosphates. So you need to use.
I don't know that. I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, but it's like 80%. They use the regular test kit for phosphate and nitrate. Maybe for some kind of polyphosphates and kind of things, they use the ICP machine, but the ICP machine is more very good for. Okay, my wife give me some water because I have something on the.
Thank you, Sophie.
It's better. Thank you, my dear. Thank you, honey. That works right now. So it's very odd with the light and everything. So, okay. See you, Jonathan. Yeah, I know it's a little bit late for everybody. Chris, your cats and dogs need good food, so do your corals. It's exactly the point.
So do we.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah.
Good food is not just because your fish don't cry or don't yelling at you, but they're yelling at you anyway. If you don't give some good food, they are teeny, skinny, the coral don't grow. With the SVC, I made when the COVID was an issue and everybody was locked down in Europe, I made a lot of live like today. And we push a lot at the SVC, and a lot of people use the SVC since these times. And I think a lot of people see the difference now because it's about 3 months. I will show you something I received from a customer. It's that. So it's the level of the phosphate made by test kit between the curve from 30 days. Okay, it was made the 5 of May to the 2nd of June. Okay, so it began at 0.020. That's pretty high, but it's under 0. And then it grow. And when the first time I saw these diagrams, I said, "Oh, what's going on? You use my product and your phosphate growing up. What's the point?" And then you stop it and it go down. And he said, "No. This is the curve of my phosphate since I use a different brand. So it go up to 0.76. And at this day will be 15 days after the month. It was the 5th of May, something like that. And
wow.
Then he used the SVC and the Elos pellets.
Okay.
And nothing else. And you can see the last 2 weeks, he go down to 0.
That's the only thing he changed?
It was the only things he changed. And first day, I said, oh, what's the graph going on? And what does this mean? It just means if you use kind of pellets with polyphosphate and phosphate inside, you have your phosphate growing up. So that's the point. So the curve said it's growing because they use the regular pellets or regular plankton. I don't want to say any brand. I know which brand he used, but it's not the case today. I don't want to jump on the board of all my friends in the industry, but he used some kind of plankton a lot every day and some kind of pellets every day, the well-known pellets. and this phosphate grew up. So after 15 days, he stopped everything and used only the Elos food, and everything go down. And he was very surprised, and me too at the same day, because I knew it's the truth, but sometimes you just need to say it. And the first time I saw the diagram, I said, oh, what's going on? So no, it was the good things. It just using a different brand, stop the brand and use just my brand, and the phosphate going down. So it arrived the point you need to little bit adding different brand to have the ease level going good. That's the point. So yeah, was the case. So I do some kind of video today, and I can show you, but with the frozen food, and in case when you use frozen food, because frozen food, we know it's a good things, and bring to your tanks a lot of vitamins, vibrants, and all the things you need for your fish. It's more of feeding your fish, and all the waste, if I can say waste, I don't know if it's a good word, but all the things is not eating by the fish will feed the corals. So for example, if you use the reef caviar from V2O, some of the reef caviar will be used by the coral, some of the reef caviar will be eating by the fish. So that's a good point. And you will add a little bit of phosphate, different, because you have a lot of more phosphate on frozen food. But if you rinse the food, and if you give just the good amount, it will not be a problem, because your system will, how to say it, will be fed by your system, and you don't have any issue with phosphate in your tank. Also with frozen food.
You know, I'm going to throw out a different opinion.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a really hard time with frozen food telling you need to rinse it.
Yeah.
I think that when a frozen food insists that you rinse their food before you use it, that you're basically getting rid of all those essential fatty acids, the EFAs and I think that it maybe, instead of rinsing your food, maybe not feed so much.
No, you're completely right. This is the point. It's why we choose to use the V2O food, because
Right.
we don't need to rinse it. So yeah, and the good way to know if your food is full of phosphate or not full of phosphate is to make a test. But it's kind of complicated to show people if your food is better than other with phosphate. If you use the cube, the small cubes, it's I think it's 10 grams or 1 grams.
I think it's a 1 gram cube.
1 gram cube. So
Yeah.
say if they're 1 gram cubes on a glass, you need to have enough water to have the balance of the water in the jar, because 1 grams in 200 gallon of water is not the same as 1 gram inside a small cup.
Absolutely.
So 1 cubes in that amount of water, like 10 ml of water for your test kit, will put a very high level of phosphate.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you use the same cube in 200 gallon of water, the phosphate will be nothing. Time by time, it can be growing a little bit, but because you have a good skimmer, you make water change and all these kind of things, it will be not a matter. But I see a lot of product made in Eastern Europe, or made in China, or made in kind of, I won't say China or anything else, but more made cheap product, because you don't want to spend a lot of money on food. To save money, people need to cut a little bit the product by adding water on it.
Well, to me, that's like feeding yourself. Okay, If you have to, it's much cheaper to eat at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Wendy's every day. Than it is to go out and buy a good food and have good nutrients. You know, the backbone, what that food is made of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm completely agree. But sometimes it's good to go to McDonald's. But sometimes it's, if you do every day, you will be some kind of problems. It's the same. You can use a bad product or a bad pellets or something very bad for your tank if it's just for because you run low on something else and the shop is closed, and or you go for holidays and you don't have time to bring you buy the good product. You can use it, but if you use every day, you will have a lot of problems. You can explain when you have the shop in Florida, you use some kind of product and then you switch to V2O.
Oh, sure. The reason that I'm so excited about the V2O and the fact that we now have it available, we're the reps on the East Coast, is that I was having terrible phosphate issues in my tanks. And this is a long time ago, so I'm going to date myself. But my rep from a company called Fish Heads, that was the wholesaler out in California. And those are the guys that now do Real Reef. So
Yes.
that'll tell you how long ago it was. But my rep out there was really good about holding my hand. And he said, you know, a friend of mine here in town does the best food. And he told me about Chris. And he said, I know you can get a hold of it. It was H2O Life at that point. That was the version of it. So he said, why don't you give it a try? And I'm really skeptical. So I brought it in, and I was using 3 or 4 different foods at that time. And what I did was I took each of these foods and I dissolved them in water all from the same tank, and stirred them all up and let them sit, and then tested. And when I tested, it was so remarkable. I mean, the difference was so great in whatever food I was using. And it's like a couple of the #1 brands on the market, and that's why I was using them. But the difference was so remarkable that I switched immediately. And within a week to 10 days, you could see a serious difference in our corals. We were using caviar, the marine fusion, the spirulina Brinomyces. I've always been one that fed a variety. I'm not really high on pellets and flakes, but back then, and that was a long time ago, flakes and pellets were not that awesome. They were just, lots
10 years ago, a lot of people make a lot of progress on food and jump on the.
Yeah, so Nikki has a good question.
Yeah, Nikki make a good question about the food and the tap water. I will say it is very interesting to know tap water and food. In my opinion, when I am in Europe, I can use the tap water and have very low phosphate nutriment in my area in Nice because we don't have any culture, we don't make any kind of growing outside. But if you go north, like Normandy or Bretagne or this kind of people make a lot of growing soja and all these potatoes and all these things. They use a lot of polyphosphate to fertilize all the plants, and they have a lot of phosphate on the tap water. So they very need to use the eroded water. That's the very point. It depends on where you are. I don't know if in South Carolina the water is worse than North Carolina, or maybe some kind of the mountains. The water could be better in the mountain. I know in Colombia, at South Carolina, they make a lot of works to have a very good tap water, and so we can drinking, and we don't have that much of phosphate, and the level of phosphate was low. Then, yeah, the tap water could be a source for phosphate, but in my opinion, the food is the most a source of phosphate in your tank. So
you also mentioned carbon at the first.
Yeah, carbon. If you use the carbon to clear your tank, a lot of people use carbon to clear a tank because the carbon is a media, filtration media, very small, very porous, and it took away the yellow tanning on the tank, so your tank could be more clear, and the water will be more transparency, and the light will be better and everything. I am an user of carbon in my tank. I use a lot of carbon in my tank. I switch and change every month. So yeah, I am a very user of carbon. But you need to use the very good carbon, because after time, if you use the carbon too long, it can delete a little bit of phosphate on it, because when the carbon arrived, it depends if it's carbon from cocoa, it's carbon from wood, it's a lot of carbon. So you really need to be careful about which carbon you use. One of the best carbon I never used was the ESV, the company in New York. It was one of the best I never used. The Julian Spoon carbon was also kind of very good, and for sure the Elos one. Since I switched with Elos, I never use nothing else. But sometimes you need to be honest and say different brand used a very good one. So
now, what are those carbons made from? Are they made from bamboo or coconut or?
We are made from coconut.
Coconut?
And coconuts, and also some kind of wood we can use in Europe. So yeah, and the size. I see a BRS TV sometimes they make videos about the size of the carbons, but it's no way with the phosphate, but it's more the using. The carbon was the size of the carbons. It's better if it's smallest than bigger, because a lot of people use the cheaper carbon. It's a big flake, big pieces, and the water can go through the carbon and not.
Right, it doesn't have much porosity.
The porosity could be the same, but the water, the water is the most lazy woman I know. They always go, so.
Okay.
So you can go everywhere. So it could be the same thing. So if it's very small, it's compact, so the water comes through.
Okay. So, and also, I think you mentioned if you don't change your carbon, pay attention to it, then it can release the phosphates back.
Yes.
Is that what you're
release
saying?
Yeah, because they release all the things they keep, because they need space to put something else. So
I see.
It's exactly the same with. Yeah. It's exactly with the same with the skimmer. If you don't clean the skimmer, the waste inside the skimmer will not took away the phosphate too. So you need to clean the skimmer every week, so it's always clean, and the phosphate can be on the top. The mud inside the skimmer will be because the phosphate is on the mud, is not on the liquids.
But doesn't that just make it more sticky for everything to stick to?
Yes and no. If it's too much, no. If you just need, it's always kind of balance.
That was a trick question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a trick question, but you know what I mean. It's you need the balance. It's always the same. An aquarium, it's balance.
Yeah. So to answer Nikki, I think, in my opinion, that the foods that are out there right now are probably the biggest source of excess phosphate. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's
and
also.
I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I do the same, because we're working since the first day we made the food, and we're working on phosphate on it. So I think the most excess come from the food, and a lot of people don't care about that, because it just it's a fairy tale to say. People since 25 years, everybody said, "Oh, I don't feed that much because he grow my excess of phosphate, or he grow my nitrate, or I don't want to put too much nutrients in my water. I will say use the good product, and you don't care about what phosphate you put on the tank because the product is perfect. That's more my opinion. We eat every day. Your dogs eat every day, or maybe twice a day. We eat twice a day. If you are my son, you eat 4 times a day. But and if we miss one, it's like crazy ad. What do you? We just eat 3 times today. So that your fish is like it's exactly the same. It's better to see a big fish with a big fat and big belly, and it's better. But you need to use the good product because it's not just phosphate. It could be too much fat, too much waste on your tank.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then we get to talk about fat fish, but that's another whole video,
Yeah, fat fish, but maybe good for salmon because we can do a good sushi and the tuna also.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You got it.
I'm not sure everybody want to eat this fish, but also the most expensive fish here. But yeah, so yes, the phosphate is the most important thing. So please use the good food. Choose the best food. You can have plenty of food. If you choose ours, is better. But if you choose something else, it's okay. But be careful. Try it. And if you want to avoid this problem, use the good media filtrations like the Marine Pure Black. You can use the Prodibio bacteria. And the biodigest will help to avoid phosphate and nitrate between the eating all the nutriment inside the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And use good food and feed your tank every day. That's my very recommendations. Feed your tank every day.
So should we see if anybody has questions?
Yeah, I think we don't have. Let's post your question. Do we have any Trivia Tuesday today? We have some question for the Trivia Tuesday.
I didn't make any up.
Oh, you're fired. You're fired. We already fired the.
Chase is fired
What's
already.
his name? What's his name? The young guy we have with us? I don't remember his name. I forgot.
He's gone now. Chase, right?
Jesus. He don't have any phones and he can't. Okay. I paid yesterday anyway.
All right. So, any questions, or I mean, we can talk about anything really, because.
Yeah, we can do a few minutes of answering question now. Let's do it.
Is Ty still on?
I think Ty is still on. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you,
Nicole.
Thank you for watching us.
Yeah, come see us again.
Yeah, when
We're
you want.
here every other Tuesday.
And take care. No, it was. Oops, it was very interesting. Phosphate is always the matter. Phosphate and nitrate is always the matter in reef tank, and also in freshwater tank. People don't understood, but the phosphate and the nitrate and freshwater tank is very important too, because if it's too big, too high, you will have a lot of blue algae on the plants. You remember all the plant with the algae, the brown air algae on it?
Yeah, the brown algae, yeah.
The brown algae, the black algae, some kind of blue algae on it. And people complain because the plant die and with a lot of algae on it. It's also because the level of the phosphate is too high. Because people sometimes on the freshwater side don't care. It's a $1 fish and 10 cents plants. And also, if you have just plastic plants or fake plants, it could be a problem because the algae will grow faster than you can, because you used a canister filter and you don't make the water change, and all the canister filter will be stuck, and you don't change enough, you don't switch with the media filter, you don't rinse, you don't clean it, so the phosphate grow up and you have a lot of algae, and the people complain, oh, my goldfish is, I clean it up everything and my goldfish die. Yeah, because it's no need to clean it up like 100% clean. You need to have a good balance of cleaning, not too much, just enough. But yeah, you can use also good food and the freshwater side. And if you make an aquascape with a lot of very kind of amianthus cuba or low planted, and you need a lot of light and a lot of CO2 systems, you really need to take care of the phosphate and the nutrients. So a good test kit for freshwater would be very interesting too. And the range of the product we do in freshwater and with ALOS is why we sell phosphate, nitrate, and potassium for the freshwater side. So yeah, it's kind of very interesting to know also the phosphates and the nitrate on each tank. It's not just on the reefing side. You like my home? Yeah, my system. How are you, Andrea? So yeah, I think we have make a good round, and let's see what we're talking about next time. What do you want to talk? I think we made maybe a trivia Tuesday somewhere with Tristan. I want to do that too.
Yeah,
And
because
we make
Tristan is using now. He's using the salt and the V2O and the triptych, and it'd be really interesting to see his tank. He has an Ellis tank. Um,
yeah, I don't know if
see
I
what it looks like.
can. I don't really know which YouTube channel you have. Let me try to find you his YouTube channel, because he told me he make videos about his program. And in his 350-gallon tank, he have a lot of issue about nutriments and all these kind of things. It was Tristan, yeah, this one. And he make a review about his protocol and his program in this tank.
Really?
Yeah, and no, that not this one. Let me find the, yeah, Tristan Reef. So let's find out his channel.
It might be TRSC. TRSC Aquatics.
Is Tristan Reef, TRS Aquatics. This is the name, but I don't know how we can.
Yeah, how you can share it.
I can do that. I can maybe do that and post this. So I put on a comment the YouTube channels, so you can go and see his YouTube channel from Tristan. He make a very beautiful. And he make a videos last week about mixing supplement, toxic for your reef. And also he made a good video about lockdown and ALOS updates. So I really recommend you see, and you will see what he going to say about mixing supplements and don't using the same protocol and the same program. So yeah, TRS, Tristan, I make a very good video about that, and he said, he was honest with me. It's about what now 2 years he used our product, 1 year, 2 years, I don't remember.
It's at least a year.
At least a year. So he used in the ALOS tank, he used only ALOS product and marine pure, and in the 350 gallon he used all the kind of products, everybody's. And you know, he do like every hobbyist. He said, oh, I see this tank is beautiful, let's using the product. Oh, I see this tank is beautiful, let's use this food, and blah blah blah. So after that he said, I have a lot of problem because my level and nutriments is like up and down, and the tank is up and down. and he looked at the is 120. It's 95 gallons from Elos. There are 120 standards he had in his office or home. I don't remember where is it. And he said, I used only the SVC, SVM omegas. And the tank is perfect. We have the same. Do you remember the shop in Colombia, David's? The shop from David? Not David, Chris David.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And they always said, I make my tank with the Elos product, and the ICP test said is like flat line, and when you use some kind of different product, it was like this. So yeah, you need to find and choose one protocol, one programs, and stay with. It's mine. I will be very happy to help you. If not, I can help you too. But choose one and stay on, because if you switch and mixed, and I really recommend to see the Tristan Reef and see what he said about his protocol. So
yeah, cool.
So everything is done. So it's time to say goodbye, and see you next. Okay.
It would be.
I cut you, but sorry for that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
What do you want to say?
No, I said it would be awesome if some people had recommendations for what they want us to talk about.
Yeah, we can make a post about that and see what's going on. So it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. And
all right.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.